All right, welcome everybody to our event on care farming and therapeutic horticulture and the intersections between the two. As Emily eloquently put it, both made of frozen cream, just different flavors of ice cream. So it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Kate Mudge. Kate is the co-director of the Care Farming Network and lives on a 40-acre farm in rural west central Minnesota, where she hopes to establish a future care farm. She brings more than 20 years of nonprofit leadership in food systems, rural development, animal welfare, and community building, and previously led food rescue work at Second Harvest Heartland. Her current work focuses on growing the care farming movement nationwide, which she is doing beautifully. And speaking of beautiful, Kate, I think you have one of the most adorable headshots I've ever seen. You and Guinevere Kern, who's actually in the waiting room right now, um, do just have the most beautiful, joyful headshots. So, with that, over to you, Kate. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. I'm going to go ahead. Well, welcome everyone. It is a pleasure to be here. I did put together a presentation, and I'm going to pull that up right now. Oh, come on. Present.
Let me see it.
Here we go. That working?
Yeah, looks great.
All right. Well, there is said headshot. Thank you, Alexis. This was actually taken last year at our first ever National Care Farming Network conference. And so, yeah, I'm getting to be okay with the crow's feet around my eyes and my smile lines and all of that. But I appreciate your compliment there. Well, yeah, everyone. So again, I'm Kate Mudge, co-director of Care Farming Network, and really happy to be here today with you all. Myself and Andrea, who also serves as the other co-director, have had a lot of conversations with both Alexis and Emily around kind of our shared work. And just first off, it's really it's nice to be in a room with people who kind of understand this work and are interested in it and possibly actively working in it too. So it's a pleasure to be here today. I've got some slides will tell you about Care Farming Network and our work, and really hoping that if you've got some questions as I'm going through, that we can have a good conversation, and I could maybe even pick your brains and get some feedback on what lands really well for you, or maybe things that you have questions about. So I'll just jump right in. So, Care Farming Network, we are similar to Root in Nature, a member-based network. We are pioneering a movement and growing a community of care farms across the United States. And I should add, we do have a few care farms sprinkled in from Canada as well. And how we're doing this, first and foremost, we're working to build awareness around care farming, being that a lot of people are not familiar with the concept. We are constantly working to connect both aspiring and established care farmers. We do that through building a lot of support. I'll talk about what some of our programs are further on. And highlighting what we think is a really transformative movement in care farming. So it's about building community, it's about building capacity, and offering support to those doing the work. Care Farming Network grew out of and is a program of Red Wiggler Care Farm, which is a farm that is located in Gaithersburg, Maryland, about half hour outside of the DC region. And the history of Red Wiggler is that 30 years ago, Woody Woodruff, who is the founder, he was working in group homes with folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities. He was really tired of hauling people around in vans to fast food restaurants and having them eat horrible things and be really bored during their days. and he actually got into some community farming with some of the clients in the group homes. Had a lot of success, saw the transformational power of what getting your hands dirty in the dirt was doing for both staff as well as those the residents at the group homes. And then he started this farm. And for the past 30 years, this farm has grown. Now they now employ 17 growers with disabilities, many staff without disabilities, and they are an organic CSA vegetable grower with one of the oldest care farms now in the nation. Woody got a lot of questions from people when he was the executive director about what he was doing, how he was doing it, where were other people doing this work. And so back in the 2017, 2018, he's like, you know what? I think we need a network. And out of that came Care Farming Network. And this is all taken from our website. I won't go through it, but essentially, we did a lot of um, early year meetups at Red Wiggler in the Mid-Atlantic area. In 2022, CFN officially launched. And over the last years, we've been growing quite rapidly, I would say. That now includes almost 400 care farms. We are a very small but mighty team, myself and Andrea serving as co-directors. We have a program associate, Sarah, who leads a lot of work around our conference, our online resource library, and our mentorship program. And Gabrielle works on social media and also accessibility. So what is care farming? Going to talk a bit more about languaging around all of our work later on. But we did realize pretty early on that we had to come up with a definition as an organization that made sense to us, and that we could use as a bit of a differentiator for what we considered to be care farms and what weren't. And this is what we landed on. Care farming uses therapeutic farming to promote health, well-being, and belonging. We talk a lot about the benefits of care farming. These are probably going to look very, um, you'll already be well aware of a lot of these benefits. Um, but obviously, physical and mental health benefits, skill development, and social inclusion, just connecting to nature offers those therapeutic benefits as well. One thing that we're talking more and more about lately is that, at least here in Minnesota, where I live, we expect 50% of farmers to be retiring in the next 10 years. So we're also talking about where are the next generation of farm workers going to be coming from, and planning on augmenting the benefits of care farming for the farming movement itself in terms of being a workforce pipeline for new farmers. So who is working on care farms? This is by no means an exhaustive list. We used to say that care farms either employed or had participants who were vulnerable and marginalized. We are now moving away from that languaging and recognizing that there's lots of populations of folks, whether you're a senior with dementia or somebody that's just leaving incarceration, or you're going through a mental health challenge. Care farms often have a specific focus with one target population, but we're also seeing a lot of farms right now working in with multiple participant populations. And same kind of the breadth and diversity of care farms. We see the majority of the farms in our network focusing on vegetable production, but by no means does it need to be kind of a traditional produce farm. You can see value-added products, many flower farms, hydroponic, aquaponic, many working with livestock and farm animals, and beekeeping as well. Again, over the last 4 years, we've been looking at how we model out care farms and sort of lump them together, if you will. And we landed on these four models that farm may provide employment or job training. A farm could be therapeutic, which might include somebody who is not licensed but is offering some kind of nature-based therapy. It can be licensed therapy, social workers, LPCCs, whatnot. Then we have residential and life sharing communities where there is some aspect of living and working on the farm. Talked a little bit about how we're building the network. Um, and again, our three goals are around raising awareness, building community, and creating that capacity for either aspiring or established care farms. One neat thing, if you visit our website, this is probably our most visited page, is that we do have a network directory. And you can see here that any farm can submit their listing and be added to the map. The nice thing about this map is our goal is to have a care farm in every county in the United States. So we have almost 400 farms on. There's over 3,000 counties. We have a ways to go. But it's just been a wild ride to see the new farms being added. In this directory, I can't remember if I added this on the next slide or not. Yeah, you can also filter listings when you visit the map. So for instance, you could choose your state or province and find a care farm near you. You can obviously search by what type of programming farms offer, farming practice, whether a farm is kind of in their early stages of development or more established in operation, even their organizational structure. Care farms do not have to be nonprofits. In fact, we're seeing more and more farms that are either for profit or have some kind of hybrid dual business structure. And then there's also population served. So this is just pulled from to show kind of some of the growth that we have been experiencing. As I said, this is the end of 2025. So we are seeing just 66 farms, new farms added in the last year alone. We've added some staff, and we're happy to see that almost, let's see, there's just 3 states that we have unmapped for a care farm. So if anyone knows of a farm in Mississippi, Louisiana, or North Dakota, you let us know. And as I said, our ultimate goal is to have a care farm in every county. So one of the ways in which we're hitting all of our goals in one fell swoop, and it's really important to us, is our national conference. It's going to be taking place, 2026 is, in just a few weeks, February 9th. Still have registration open for it. This is an in-person only conference. This will be our second conference that we've hosted. And the reason that it's so important to us is because what we heard from our members is, where are the other people doing this work? And within a member-based network, we can offer resources all day long. They're very appreciated. But what we really feel like is the value of being a member is the ability to interact, network, socialize, and know other members, because we have found that folks who are farming, who are doing difficult kind of social mission farming, have often felt really isolated. And just the fact that you can gather with people over the course of 3 days, learn from one another, and leave with these new relationships has been really kind of a game changer for many. So that is something that we're really looking forward to. From 2025, we had 170 attendees. This year, we're going to have over 200. And people are coming from all over the country. So you're always welcome to attend. We're also going to be hosting some monthly member gatherings afterwards, where we're doing some encore presentations of the breakout sessions that were pretty exciting for folks to sit in on. And if you couldn't make the conference, these are going to be free for folks to register for. So we also have a resource library. We're adding to it every week. What our resource library is right now, again, I'll probably say often similar to Root in Nature, um, is videos and research articles and shared documents around how to start a care farm or specific practices that are used on care farms. This is open access to our members, and we were able to make this happen through a grant through the USDA. And we kind of considered this our primary storefront, if you will. A lot of folks have been sharing their own resources from their farm. So, for instance, if you're going out and trying to find a farm manager, you can get a position description that another care farm uses and do some kind of sharing like that. We do professional consultations as well. Many of those are pro bono, at least the first consultation. So if people have specific questions for us, we can meet one-on-one and online. A lot of partnership building. Care farming, there's a lot of different fields and sectors that are interwoven. So we like to know who else out there is doing important work. And we also host a beginning care farming series. If you ever want to see those series, you can go back to 2023s and 2024s that are in our resource library and actually watch them and get the resources that we were providing to participants there. They're broken up into segments that are sort of our most commonly asked question. How do you start a care farm? How do you do the practical things like figure out your insurance or your safety protocols? How do you fundraise for care farms? And mostly what the next few slides are is really showing how we are working to validate the benefits of care farming. You can go on our website and we have lots of videos available for people who, again, the concept might be new. So how do we build awareness and let people know that there are hundreds of farms throughout the country that is doing this work? What is new in care farming research? There's a lot of research out there that isn't necessarily nested underneath care farming, so we have to go out and find it. I will say your all your research portal that you have is absolutely fantastic. Um, but we are working on actually getting a care farming journal. And that is we're working with some researchers and trying to secure some funding so that what we know to be true, which is that care farming offers all of these benefits, again, can be quantified, qualified, all of the research terms that I don't know about because I'm not a researcher, um, in an effort to do what other countries have done, which is put some resources into care farms. Because what care farms are doing is really working. Just has to be put in an article often on paper and validated by those who know how to do that thing to keep the funding and that awareness growing. And we're also working with a lot of national media and local media outlets, public radios, papers, whatnot. This is just one slide done by a nice story by Side Effects Public Media asks the question, why aren't there more care farms? We're able to use this to change the question to why are care farms growing so quickly in the country? That's our our goal there. We also have just some other examples here of some places that we show up and do some presentations and talk about care farming. This last year, we had a mentorship program. We will be bringing this back in 2026. Again, going back to this idea that connection and networking is really important to our members. We matched 7 mentee beginning care farmers with 7 experienced care farmers over the course of a year. And the mentee cohort would meet monthly. They visited their mentor farm. The mentors visited the mentees' farms. We did a nice practice with the mentees to get them comfortable with grant writing, since that is such a big piece of the puzzle. And we just had those folks graduate this last year. So I think we're going to be building that out maybe more into a 2-year program because there was a lot to fit into that 1 year. And again, these are just some articles, press, podcasts on care farms. We are always out not just to talk about what Care Farming Network is doing, but as a member-based network, what other farms are doing. So we have an entire section of our website dedicated to lifting up the great press that the farms are receiving. We do lots of other things too, similar to y'all. We have our monthly member gatherings. We're out there doing presentations. We attend a lot of conferences, and help spread the word. This is kind of points to something that we're very excited about. This is kind of hot off the press. When I was talking about research before, we actually got some funding to look at why care farming, how it works. Specifically, how does employing people with intellectual and developmental disabilities on farms make a difference? So this is going to be published within the next couple years, and this is a very brief summary of a 36-page research project. But essentially, what the results were saying is not only does care farming improve the well-being of those that are growing food, by offering more independence, more dignity, more employment models, and opportunities. But it's also made some really interesting findings around how anybody on a care farm um, just is impacted by the work. That can be staff, that can be volunteers, that can be people in the community who are coming and getting food that wasn't available to them before. So it's a beautiful study, and happy to share it with y'all if you'd like to give it a read. So I put together the last of these slides specifically thinking about therapeutic horticulture. And I know that Alexis and myself and Emily, we've all talked about kind of this importance of shared language within this movement. Because again, when we're working in a field where you have to start by providing a definition and then giving an example, 30 seconds in, oftentimes I've lost people. And so, not only is it important for us to be concise about what care farming is, but we don't consider ourselves the information holders. We have hundreds of people in a network that want to be part of this conversation too. So I pulled this resource out because back in April of 2025, we did a presentation that looked at the terminology that we were using within the community. We talked about how we had been attempting to note the key terms that needed some additional clarification or defining, and all of this with the intent that we're going to strengthen and advocate for care farming as a whole. It's a 1 hour long presentation. It was really well attended, and we got some great feedback from folks. Give you one example. On a farm, if you are employed there, one farm might call you a grower. One might call you an employee. One might make a note that you are an employee with a disability. One might say you're a participant. It's like there's all these different ways that you can talk about just this one example of somebody that's growing food. And so we talked about kind of the benefits and of having maybe not just one specific term, but why some farms are choosing the terms that they're using and others are leaving them behind. By no means do we want to say too that there's like a definitive end to this conversation, right? Language is just something that is going to be regularly evolving. But we are committed to kind of co-creating this language with people so that there's an accurate representation around the practices that our member farms are doing out there. And one of the things that we came up with is sometimes it's easier to talk about what a care farm isn't than what it is. And so, a few things here just to point out is that care farming really does have an intentional and structured program. That it is not necessarily just agritourism. On our map, we get a lot of people who apply to be included in the directory. And I like to use an example of somebody who offers goat yoga. If anybody can come to your farm and do yoga with a goat, that's wonderful. I love goats. We're going to get goats. They're fantastic. But to us, that's not a care farm because there isn't necessarily a defined mission to that care farm with a specific targeted population of people. That to us would be more of like an agritourism uh, um, event offering for a farm. When we talk about care farms offering social and health benefits, we talk about this specific targeted population. And that the care farms that exist out there, I'm just going to go back to the idea of marginalized and vulnerable populations, that there's a social mission with a recognition that even though there's mutual engagement between those kind of providing care and receiving care, we this is not sort of open access to everybody. There is a recognition that if you've been historically underserved and that if you identify as like a vulnerable person who has often been excluded, then that is where care farming comes in, that you are specifically targeting a population of folks that is not just nature-based. The other thing that we really like to note in care farming is that the farm is essential. Care farming is about place-based farm. And I mentioned earlier that you can have farms that are in the middle of a city. It doesn't have to be a certain acreage. It doesn't have to be livestock. It doesn't have to be vegetable. But our kind of this is a little bit of a jokey go-to, but there has to be a recognition that if you're coming to a care farm, it kind of looks like a farm, feels like a farm, it smells like a farm. I live on a farm myself, and there's a lot of folks out there who are doing care farming and really what it might be more, again, fantastic opportunities for people, but it might be more like a community garden. Um, which is not a care farm. So going back to this idea that the farm itself, well, it can be very broad and diverse, and we have lots of different examples of farms. Um, it does offer this place-based setting. So there's a lot of different ways to get involved. I can throw some links in the chat. We're on all the social places. You can sign up for our newsletter. You can join us at a conference or a monthly member gathering. But happy to have anybody who would like to join us in this work do so. I thought there was one more slide, but I think that's it.